With the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
Ever witnessed someone so fast on track you doubt you could ever be on their level? The mission of Advanced Motorsports is to demonstrate the speed is achievable for everyone. With the expertise of some of the best sim drivers in North America, we are set to release free content on social media and comprehensive guides on our website. For those seeking the ultimate experience, our Advanced Motorsport Institute and personalized coaching sessions are the way to go. No matter your level of experience, we invite you to follow us on our social media to learn to be fast.
We're starting to approach the late point of the season, and things are tightening up at the top of the standings. Plenty of battles throughout the field and throughout our Am and Pro classes here in the Precision Racing League Super Formula Series, Round 6 from the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya, here on RaceSpotTV. Hello everyone, I'm Reese Gardner. Justin Prince is with me in the commentary box. Dustin Ollis behind the scenes, pressing all the buttons in the producer's chair. Well, Justin, we race at the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya, as I said. The classic layout, historic circa 1995. A lovely flowing layout that should provide a lot of opportunity for these cars to show what they can do.
Yeah, it's a layout so historic and so ever-flowing that they're considering, in fact, are going back to it after all. So historic becoming present. But in all seriousness, for a racetrack like this tonight, it's going to be very critical to be able to time up where your runs are, but better yet, be able to try and maximize your speed, especially in the midst of dirty air tonight. It should be an interesting one in turn with the Super Formula machines here in Barcelona.
Yeah, absolutely should. Plenty of opportunities to use the overtake system. This is the schedule, currently on round 6 towards the bottom. We go to Algarve, Suzuka and Kota to end off the season over the next 3 weeks. 3 very high standard Grand Prix courses there, Justin, and a lot of good racing should be provided, as has been throughout the whole season.
Yeah, it's been an interesting layout for the season. We've seen some good races, in particular across the PRL platform, when it comes to the circuits on hand. But this essentially is going to come down to crunch time for some of these teams, especially when you talk about Portimao coming up, Suzuka, Kota in particular is going to be a major challenge race when it comes to that one to close out the season because of track limits. It's a balancing act, and tonight is, well, the second act, about to cross over to the third act by the end of the evening.
Yes, and you're going to be balancing on a knife edge the whole way through, much like the AM standings here. Kevin McPherson was leading the championship and still is, but crucially, he did not finish the previous round at the Hungaroring. So Christian Jasper and Jake Vasconcelos have really closed that gap, only 8 points separating them. So McPherson, I think, is going to have to get back on the wagon here if he wants to secure that championship.
It's kind of wild thinking about it, though, how long we've seen drivers like Vasconcelos in the series and still in the M category. He showed a lot of promise a couple years ago, a couple car types ago when it comes to the Formula side of things, but since then has seen things slow down a little bit. Kevin McPherson, though, was a huge pickup in terms of speed over the past couple seasons and from last year in particular in these time slots. It's going to be important, though, for Jasper. Keep it clean with how it's been playing out in terms of how tight it is amongst those AM standings.
Yeah, Jasper's had a very consistent season. So have the likes of Michael Diaz and Boris Ovando, along with J.R. Williams. Diaz leading the championship by 5 points. He's the only driver to finish on the podium at all rounds so far. Boris Ovando won the first round at Road Atlanta and the most recent round at the Hungaroring. Pair of wins for Diaz at Motegi and Monza, and Williams won round 2 at Montreal. All of these drivers have had varying fortunes, but Diaz has been the most consistent, and that's showing here.
Well, when you drop a 50-point round, it says a lot in terms of your consistency. 5 top 5s in 5 races so far. He has been very difficult to pick out of the top 5 in general so far. those Precision Racing Esports machines, especially the blue camp, have been dialed in. However, with how things are going though, in terms of J.R. Williams also continuing his rise of speed we started to see last year pop up with SRT White, it should be a tight window in the next couple races, especially knowing what we've already seen with the schedule.
Yeah, indeed. Brief look at the overall standings to see that McPherson and Jasper are 8th and 10th overall. That's our AM Championship top 2. Here in the Precision Racing League Super Formula Series, the teams, meanwhile, Precision Racing Esports Blue looks like 60 points that they've got over SRTE White. That's Andres Espinosa and J.R. Williams in that team there. Lavoie Motorsport as well, Alex Guyon and his teammate. They are in 4th right now. Could overtake SRTE Blue if they play their cards right here.
And they've showed solid speed when it comes to keep an eye on the speed traps, the practice times tonight to do so. But tonight could be an extreme challenge once you get to race conditions. That's the major talking point. I will say this though, Precision Racing Esports Blue, they have been the kings of consistency you could talk about, Reese, because like I talked about with your point leader, when you score 100 plus points as a group in all but just one race, it says a lot in terms of what your speed is. 9 top 5s out of a possible 10 plus from the driver lineup so far.
Yeah, brilliant stuff from PRE Blue. Of course, we can't go without thanking the sponsors here of the Precision Racing League. Of course, Advanced Sim Racing, owned and operated by passionate sim racers. Advanced Sim Racing designs and builds the sturdiest and most durable aluminium profile racing simulation cockpits available in the market today. If you're a PRL member, you also get a 5% discount on ASR products. Just use the Precision5 coupon code at checkout on advancedsimracing.com. Racebox offers mid and high-end button boxes for sim racing enthusiasts, from the casual gamer up to the most meticulous sim racing driver. Competitively priced and carefully handcrafted, their button boxes are an enjoyable addition to any sim racing setup. Visit raceboxsimracing.com. You can also get a 5% discount on their products using the Precision5 coupon code. Butt Kicker products, meanwhile, add incredible immersion and realism to every game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. Check them out at thebuttkicker.com, also on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Moradness is a performance lifestyle brand motivated by motorsport and founded by professional race car driver Daniel Morad. Moradness.com, also on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. They have a Discord server as well. Mr. Hedge iRacing Photography. Capture your finest, proudest, or simply worst moments from your hobby in up to 8K resolution. A great addition to any sim room. MrHedge.co.uk. He's also on Facebook and Instagram. And last but not least, get ready to learn to be fast with Advanced Motorsports. Follow them on their socials to become a better driver. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and Threads. They are absolutely everywhere. Well, we are in qualifying at the moment. Just coming up to the halfway point, and Michael Diaz on provisional pole, continuing his excellent run that he's had over the course of this season. But Kevin McPherson, the AM Championship leader, currently 2nd overall. Looks like he's dialed in here.
He's also picked up a solid draft mate, at least for some of the straightaways, it seems. Throughout the final practice, he was still around where he is in qualifying, 120.4s. So it's pretty clear that at the very least, the qualifying side of the car, he's very comfortable with in the midst of the pack. It's just going to be the race side of it that's going to be a question. You can see just how much the aero wash is going to potentially strike for some drivers. He's struggling to match the same apexes of Michael Diaz in front of him.
Indeed, Neil Alexander's the car ahead of Kevin McPherson, and oh dear, that's a bit too much power on the way through the second last corner. Very difficult to balance the car through there, so that will be lap over for Kevin McPherson. No worries, he's got plenty of time to set the lap he needs. But Michael Diaz at the moment, I think, just setting another lap, maybe bringing it round to start another. We'll see what he can do to put a bit more of a gap between himself and those behind him. His teammate Boris Ovando has not quite gotten the lap he wants either. He's down in 20th right now, 1 minute 22.8. That is 2.5 seconds off the pace, so Ovando needs to get his proverbial together here.
Yeah, it's pretty clear-cut with what you look on the time. Just 2 times up at the board on a possible 6 so far. That's very much not going to cut it, especially with the amount of off-tracks. But this is a racetrack that if you don't get the marks right, you can have that. It looks like Boris just had another issue in the midst of the steering. And is going to have to rewind it up again in the 2-car.
Yeah, I think maybe he was late apexing it for a good run through the last few corners. Across the start-finish line he will come to begin another lap, and we'll see just how long the front stretch is here at Barcelona. Of course, famous in its first Formula One race in 1991 for Senna and Mansell dicing into this braking zone. It's going to be one of the prime overtaking opportunities on the lap. Plenty of room for the drivers to use the overtake system on these cars. And if you're unfamiliar, Super Formula cars produce about 550 horsepower in general, but drivers can activate the overtake, which gives them extra power, extra fuel burn. You can only use it for 200 seconds worth of time in the race, and in between every time you use it, there's a 100-second cooldown period. There's not any use of it in qualifying. It is disallowed, but when you come to the race, that front straight is one of the places we'll see it being used.
If anything, that is one of your prime opportunities in general when it comes to today from Catalona up to turn 1. The other option you can really think about, Reese, is a little bit shorter in my opinion, but turn 9 to 10 is a lot of opportunity to do that. Boris has given up again and trying the arc yet again. Boris just can't get a clean lap down.
Oh, this is not good for Ovando, second in the championship. J.R. Williams, third in the championship right now. His DNF at Monza would have really hurt his championship chances, but it's amazing to see that he's still got as small of a gap to the front as he has. He'll be wanting to improve on P5 here on his way through the last couple of corners. 1 minute 20.8 his fastest time as things stand, and he's not going to match it this time round. Of course, the tyres do take a couple of laps to really get up to speed in these cars, so maybe he's just putting another banker in on this run.
There is a little bit of time to work with on the board, but not a lot, to say at the very least, in terms of what we're just talking about. But talking about Jake Vasconcelos, he's actually 4th in the AM order so far. And it looks like, again, even though he just got another personal best time there, it's still not enough to be able to top by the rest of his AM competitors. He's still 4th best out of all AM cars.
Yeah, not good for Jake Vasconcelos, especially when you got pro cars in the midst of all of his other AM competitors. Alex Guillon across the line, not able to improve. We did see an improvement from Guillon's teammate David Syrah, getting up from outside the top 10 into 8th place. So they'll be happy with that in the number 19. We keep our eyes on the number 13, though. J.R. Williams currently going around this hot lap, and we haven't seen whether or not he's gotten an off track over the course of this one, but through the last couple of corners, he seems to have enough space to the car ahead that he shouldn't be dealing with too much aero push out of the final corner, almost getting an off track there, and it's going to be, missing out by just 0.04 of a second. Make that 3 even 200ths of a second on improving. Drivers are really struggling to find pace here.
Yeah, especially since, even though it's a later evening start for the qualifying session, in theory, the grip's supposed to go up. In fact, if anything, it's stayed about stagnant so far on track. Sirwan, good jump up, though. He gets himself out of the AM. Hornet's Nest outside of that 326 that's still up there.
Lovely stuff from David Syrah. He's been hovering in and around the top 10 and top 5 throughout the season. This has been a great performance from him so far. This is J.R. Williams' teammate at SRTE White, Andres Espinosa, who finished on the podium at Monza, taking advantage of his teammates' poor running. Steve Baker, meanwhile, oh my lord, the number 55 going up to P2 in AM class and P3 overall. Baker's one of those drivers that we've been watching throughout this season, Justin. He's shown great turns of pace, but it just hasn't come together for him in the races. Maybe this round will be when it finally comes to him.
Especially since he was second fastest in final practice for this one tonight. So that's the thing. You can have all the speed of the world. You could be the fastest car on the track by 5 seconds even. It doesn't matter, though, if you then take that car with all its speed and put it into the tire barrier, because really, what do you accomplish other than showing how much speed you can carry into a barrier against what you can put on the board for a finish on a racetrack?
Exactly right. Consistency has been key in this championship, and I mean, as we mentioned, that's why Michael Diaz is up the top of the standings right now. Reeves, meanwhile, in the number 92. Let's see what he can do on his way through the very fast chicane, and one of my favorite corners on the circuit going across the top of the hill. It's absolutely beautiful when you get it right, and I really love the fact that we are using the historic layout of this track. Extends the straight a bit and allows you to carry a bit more pace through the final sector. So much downforce on these Super Formula SF23s. They are going at a great turn of pace. Let's see if Reeves can improve.
Doesn't have too much draft to work off outside of maybe the edge of a teammate's draft. 121.4, that's not going to do it. So I think at this point, maybe go for one more lap based on the numbers. He's been amongst those that have been able to put 3-4 laps in, then be able to reset and get some new tires on it. Others like Baker, he's still holding firm in third spot. He is within a 10th of the Ampol and within 3/10 of the overall now.
Yeah, a little bit of understeer it looked like through the chicane though, so hopefully he'll be able to come back from that, just kiss the curb at the apex there and make your way into the final sector. Meanwhile, Ovando has made an improvement, but it's only up to 15th, 121.8. He's now 1.5 seconds back from his teammate Michael Diaz at the top of the standings. What can Baker do now through these final couple of corners? Ovando's last opportunity is going to come here. This is going to be one of Baker's last opportunities to move forward. Guyon improving to 11th, Vasconcelos improving to 6th, and Baker will improve by a 10th and take AM-Class pole.
And it looks like Baker's very happy with that, and what a run indeed for Steve. Is this the night? As you said, he puts it fully together here. A lot of pressure for Boris, though. He's right now using all the esports lines, trying to use every inch of real estate, nearly off of the sand trap a couple times already in this final sector.
Oh, let's see if this is what he's looking for. 1 minute 20.7. There's the improvement that he needs. Up into the top 10, but still a bit of a ways off where he needs to be. Remember, Ovando second in the championship. Every point counts in the PRL. There's only 1 point's difference per position in PRL leagues. So Ovando needs just one more run here, but I don't know if he's geared up the first sector enough for this final lap to count. Diaz, meanwhile, on his final lap here, only 30 seconds remaining, and that looked like a little bit of a mistake through the chicane.
Yeah, I think Michael at the very least is going to be happy with the track position no matter how this slices through here. But I think for Diaz, he's running out of time. With all these mistakes starting to build up here, I don't think it's going to end up beating or at the very least be enough to cross a 120.3. I think Diaz has a good spot already locked up. He's on the fringe, surprisingly, but he is risking it with the twitchiness.
Checkered flag out. Michael Diaz crosses the line and improves. Wow, 1 minute 20.1.
That didn't
Perfect
look
lap.
That didn't look like a 120.1 race.
No, certainly didn't. Oh no, and Andres Espinosa is not going to improve on 5th with a spin coming out of the left-hander. Improvement for Ovando. He's gotten up to overall 2nd. Excellent stuff from Ovando. Precision Racing Esports Blue are 1 and 2, as they have been at many rounds this season.
Well, for Boris, I think it's just a matter of it took him a little bit to get that lap down, right? And as we've seen, the more rubber being built up on the track, the faster the times seem to be circulating. Now that the session's coming to the final moment, some drivers are getting it timed just right all of a sudden. It's not the track conditions, it's more the rubber.
It is indeed. David Sirah will improve by 1 spot, up into 9th spot at the very end. Pablo Valenzuela Uribe, meanwhile, he managed to get on the podium at Monza. Certainly has good pace at fast circuits. So let's see if Barcelona will smile on him and he can break into the top 10. 121.1 is his fastest lap, and it looks like this might be an improvement. Oh, it is, but it doesn't actually result in an improvement in position. So that is the final driver there to complete a lap in the qualifying session for round 6 of PRL Super Formula here at Barcelona, Catalunya. Well, let's go through the grid then, Justin. Michael Diaz is going to start on pole position, and it's a front row lockout once more for Precision Racing Esports Blue Ovando next to him. Baker, meanwhile, fantastic pace, taking AM pole versus Kevin McPherson, the AM Championship leader. Victor Awad is going to start alongside Andres Espinosa to round out the top 6. Then, Jake Vasconcelos and JR Williams, 7th and 8th. Syrah and Reeves will round out the top 10. And Blake Ziti and Alex Guyon will round out our top 12.
13th spot in this one going to Eric Palacio. Then it starts alongside Pablo Valenzuela Uribe. The next row features someone we've seen in a magnitude of different open wheel cars. It's Jeff Groff starting alongside Valenzuela. Dave Peterson starts off in 17th tonight in the 35 machine. Hugo Galez rounds out the top 18. Christian Jasper way far back in the field tonight, back in 19th for the Stado Motorsports. Then it's Viking Hot Rods Racing Sean Duhamel in 20th. Alexander and, yes, this is a sim name, Evander Jonesy Field starts 22nd. That's a name. Jean-Marc Cormier starting behind, and we did have one driver set a time late, Ethan Tavides. Lining at the field, Drew DeWeese.
Indeed, 25 cars will take to the start here. Cristobal Valenzuela and Drew DeWeese did not set times in practice, and I don't think DeWeese was even in the session in practice. So this is going to be interesting to see if Drew will be able to have a clean race and improve on his positions there. Yeah, you pointed out, Justin, that Christian Jasper is a long way down, but he's tended to be able to improve by just avoiding mistakes. There's been a lot of drivers spinning at previous rounds, and if you can keep the car straight, then that will certainly help you in the overall standings. Revs rise, and oh no, little problem for McPherson. He's already rolled forward on the grid and jumped the start as we are away. PRL Super Formula is go here at Barcelona. It's a poor start as well from Boris Ovando. Steve Baker is going to move into 2nd place as they make their way into turn 1 for the first time. Jake Vasconcelos up to the AM class 2nd place. JR Williams is falling back massively. 7th place for him. Jasper already making up 3 spots. He's dicing with Dave Peterson down in the field. Side-by-side continues, Williams versus Syrah. That's the first side-by-side that we're seeing, but the top 5 already in single file and trying to sort themselves out.
Here in some contact over the back of the field. Evans Davidas,
yeah.
Alex Guyon's been involved in this one. And Jasper, as I was fearing, is amongst those who lost a lot of time and amongst those in the vicinity. That's the risk of not qualifying well, right? You get involved in potential incidents, even with the checkup effect. You have the potential of cars landing in your lap, and it just happened to many in the back.
Yeah, indeed it did. Such a shame. Looks like Alex Guyon lost that all by himself, but we'll keep our eyes peeled on the front for now, and we'll get a replay of that incident soon. At the end of lap 1, Michael Diaz leading by 0.8 of a second. He's gotten the perfect start, exactly what he needs, and he is leaving them behind.
Yeah, a blistering start, and yet again, Michael Diaz doing Michael Diaz things. That's all you can really say to that. Already the black flag being served by McPherson, though. As expected, it is not great when you don't get a run in. We've had more troubles at the back somehow on a straightaway. We've had a crash. Jean-Marc Cormier just had to tow from the middle of the racetrack with no tires on it.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, Jean-Marc Cormier has certainly been having a tough time here today. Looks to me like just catching the curb potentially. Oh no, it wasn't Cormier, it was Drew DeWeese who spun and Cormier got into him. Well, we'll see that at some point. We'll take you through it. For now, keep focused on live. Diaz seems comfortable in the lead. Baker comfortable in second. Ovando comfortable in third. But Vasconcelos, I think, will be facing some pressure from Victor Awad for the last spot in the top four. Lock up for Boris Ovando, meanwhile. He has lost a ton of time to Baker and Diaz. And now this is a full-on fight for third on back. A huge train of cars.
That's one thing I've really noticed with the SCAR race over its short time on the iRacing platform. If you are used to driving, say, the F3 or, say, an IndyCar, say anything along those lines, this is a bit more challenging, to say the very least. It's got the high speed that we mentioned with the horsepower, especially with the push to pass similar to that of an IndyCar, for example. However, the downforce feel is just less, and it's easier to miss corners just like this. Another mistake, this time for the 44. Victor Awad going from fifth all the way to outside the top half of the field, and that's the thing. This car is hard to turn. If you push too hard, it doesn't have as much bite we've seen.
Yeah, indeed. Well, the first of our replays here. This is the jump start for Kevin McPherson. He just got rolling a bit too early there. Stopped the car again, but he moved forward enough that iRacing would have given him a black flag, and then the actual standing start he got was terrible as well. So Kevin McPherson, if things don't go his way further here, he's going to end up losing the AM Championship lead, likely to his teammate Jake Vasconcelos, still running in fourth overall. Here was what happened on lap 1 for Alex Guillaume, and it was a spin right ahead of the rest of the field. Fortunately, most of them managed to avoid it, but we saw Ethan Tavitas there spinning and losing his rear wing, hitting the concrete barrier. Just tends to happen sometimes on lap 1 at Barcelona. The tyres are cold, the car is oversteery, and you can't afford to push too hard, as you said, Justin.
Yeah, Repsol 2 is one of the danger track points here at Barcelona because it's a hard braking section, a chance for drivers to get a little bit brave to the inside, but also a lot of elevation change all the way up to around turn 8 before getting towards the next straight. Just take a look at Tavitas, for example. It's tricky to see what's happening in front. You see, okay, there's a little bit of checkup. What's going on? I'm going to go. Oh, wait, there's a car there. And all of a sudden, bam. You just have a stack-up effect, and Tavitas now has no rear wing. And in this case, it lost him a lap and still is losing him time. In fact, he's out of the race because his technical issues just built up.
Yeah, it's unfortunate for Ethan Tavitas as well as Jean-Marc Cormier, who's also disconnected from the race. It looks like Drew DeWeese is retired too. So we are 3 cars down as we look at the battle in the midfield. SRTE cars of Palacio, Ziti, and Reeves all running in a line here, but no passes being made for the time being. We'll see what happened to Drew DeWeese on the exit of the final corner. Just catches the gravel, spins, and here comes Jean-Marc Cormier. I am flummoxed, Justin. He had all the space in the world to avoid that and just drove right into him.
Yeah, but I think the thing is he was committed already to corner exit, trying to maximize the exit. Probably was thinking he's slamming hard to the right. He's going to go to the inside wall. The thing is, that didn't happen. Remember, one of the main things talked about in the safety briefing for this race is remember to hold your brakes. Remember to try and hold on to the car. Yeah, right there, he expected to go right. He was fully committed to go straight.
Yeah, all right, fair enough then. Probably just, the rate of closing was a bit too great. And, I mean, you got to be on your toes in these cars. Speaking of on your toes, that is Ovando. It looks like he's just made his way back past Baker and into second spot. So he's actually gotten back on the wagon somewhat as Boris Ovando. He made that move on Baker down at turn 1. So he's got the pace up now, and you can see that the green light above his head is blinking slowly. That means that he's already used his overtake system for the first time, and it's now on the 100-second cooldown.
You talked about needing to pick the right times to utilize it. So far, haven't seen that many of the green blinking lights. Steve Baker just hit the green light Vasconcelos hit the green light. Everybody's on the green light just about down the straightaway. Solid light is the cool down / the ready, so a lot of the drivers are getting at least built up, Reese, for future opportunities. Here's the tough part about Barcelona when everybody at least thinks about to press the button or to get ready for it. It's a track known to be aero trains, and we're starting to see that build outside of here.
Yeah, you saw the green light blinking fast there for the Lavoie and Christian Jasper behind. If it's blinking fast, then that means that they are using the overtake system. And what you got to watch out for towards the end of the race is the light blinking red. That means that they have less than 20 seconds of overtake left. Drivers in the midfield are going to be using it a bit harder earlier to make up positions, but most of the drivers up the front of the field will be reserving it.
I mean, if you're up at the front, is there really a need to really use it? You're already at the front. It's already a track where, especially Sir Michael Diaz, you're in a prime position to bank it as long as you need to, because you're the race leader and you have a teammate playing defense and another fellow logo main and Steve Baker that's also able to play that defense for you in turn there. So a lot of big picture racing, you can very much argue here. As you see that viewpoint, a lot of blinking now for some of those teammates, but back in that field, some of the recovery drives, they are costing themselves time with this fight for 19th still.
Yeah, Christian Jasper and Alex Guyon there as Neil Alexander behind them brought it into the pits. It looks like he's picked up damage somewhere along the way. So, yeah, Neil Alexander having a bit of a tough time right now as Guyon makes the move on Jasper finally and is through. Guyon, remember, started in 12th, but he had that spin at Repsol Corner on lap 1. So he's on a massive recovery drive right now. Keep our eyes peeled on Boris Ovando, who has gotten up to pace and is chasing down Michael Diaz. Boris Ovando, fastest car on track last time by and holds the fastest lap of the race. He ran 4 tenths faster than Michael Diaz.
I'm not quite concerned, though. I think Diaz is just saving stuff. Saving the tires, saving the grip. It's quite simple as that. But also, you're in the race lead. It's a little bit trickier maybe in theory for the fuel save. So may as well just set the tempo, and maybe, if anything, even though there's drafting sniff from Ovando, there's no major panic, at least to me, because now you just press the button, boom, you counter it. It's still inedible, though, that there's going to be at least some time bleed over time.
Yeah, indeed, and fuel saving could be a factor if drivers have underfueled the car in anticipation of using the draft, but there are no pit stops for fuel in Super Formula. You put your fuel in the car at the start, and that's the fuel you've got for the race. You can't refuel in the pits, but nobody's on push to pass just yet. In this section of the field, very long train of SRTE cars taking up the majority of the top 10 here behind David Sirott running in 5th. Williams has made up 2 positions at the front of this train in the number 13, but I can see Andres Espinosa starting to gain on him. Comparing lap times, they're very close, actually neck and neck. It's only 100th of a second separating their pace on the last lap.
Yeah, 100th of a second isn't really anything. In terms of the difference, it's basically you gain a 10th every 10 laps. That's gonna not really last over the course of a 34-lap estimated race like this one tonight. So, in honesty, if you want to really gain, you have to get at least a 10, if not 2, if not 3, consistently each lap if you want to go from the back to the front challenge. And a lot of drivers I've noticed amongst those in the teens are staying boxed in terms of time. You already see some of those in that midst of the box starting to try and figure out, can we use the push? Can I make a pass? Just like that, this is Valenzuela going and not doing much with it.
Yeah, Cristobal Valenzuela just catching up to Dave Peterson there on the way down the front straight and potentially a tiny bit of understeer in turn 3. Keep our eyes peeled on the SRT blue cars. This is Ziti and Reeves. And these two have been pretty close to each other all season. They've been occupying the same piece of racetrack almost every time I've looked at them this season. and they've managed to keep out of each other's hair. Besides, SRTE is certainly working the team game very nicely here. Oh no, that's Sean Duhamel, unfortunately, who's gone for a spin. Where is that? That's down at turn 4, the hairpin. Doesn't look like he's gained damage, but maybe just lost it on the way down into the corner there. It's downhill, you know, you got to try and trail the brakes, and these cars are snappy at the best of times.
Especially snappy when you sit in as deep as this. He just missed his braking mark by at least 20 feet, had to step onto the brake. What happens when you step on the brake? You spin it around. Just quite simply, too much force on the brake, having to check up after missing his initial brake mark, an initial commitment to send that he backed out of. And now he pays a bit of the price of a couple spots lost.
Yeah, I would expect, especially at this circuit, they'd be running the brake bias a long way to the rear as well for some extra rotation on the way into corners and shortening those heavy braking zones. But if you have to really check up, then all of that braking power on the rear wheels is definitely going to send your rear end swinging. Well, keeping an eye on Vasconcelos as he's starting to face pressure from David Syrah. It seems like both YS and Lavoie have got their quote-unquote second drivers up the field a bit further than their more successful drivers over the course of the season. Barcelona being a very tough round for Alex Guyon and Kevin McPherson, those teams respectively. Vasconcelos still lining up the exits perfectly. But Syrah took 3/10 out of him on the last lap. So some gains being made. Speaking of gains, Boris Ovando almost within half a second of Michael Diaz. He'll be feeling the slipstream, and now he'll be picking the right time to use the overtake. He was fastest of everyone again on that lap, 121.89.
Based on what I'm seeing, some of the drivers are starting to use that button, as you said, to gain a little bit. Ovando, though, is doing it at a raw pace. So he's continuing to get some race consistency in. But talking about Williams, now that you see him on the racetrack on your screen, he's amongst those in that box and train, essentially. We talked about him needing points, needing track position. That's going to be challenging for him to get at the rate things are looking here, because he's getting boxed in almost behind some of the M cars and by David Syrah, because you could tell just around here, he starts to almost take off and almost bobbling around in the midst of some of these corner entries / exits, trying to get back to the gas.
Yeah, there's so many fast corners around this place that you need to be careful of aero push in these cars. And, you know, in almost any other series, you'd be like, okay, I can pit for tires and maybe undercut the guys in front of me. I won't have to make the pass on track. It's just too hard. But remember, these tires can easily last the full race distance, and there's no mandatory pit stop. It is a sprint all the way to the end, so you're going to have to just grin and bear it, really. You're going to have to deal with that understeer.
It's a characteristic in general when it comes to open wheel racing. It's been a characteristic in really anything when it comes to this time slot. But in all seriousness too, it's very much so when it comes to this wing construction. We've seen this as well in real life action a bit, where it just takes off. It's like similar to that of the previous technology we've seen in the Formula 1 cars prior to some of the more recent chassis designs. This car just gets extremely tight once you're within 5 car lengths. It's almost like the Formula 1 Oval as well, where it gets tight within 1 second of somebody in the corner, and you almost get aero trapped. It's the game of, can you find a clean air and force the pressurized mistake, or do you just ride in the choo-choo train and wait to see if anybody makes the mistake and loses their train track?
Yeah, well, Eric Palacio ahead of Victor Awad here. Almost derailed coming out of the chicane earlier in the lap, so Awad potentially smelling blood in the water. You can see he's just easing the car into these corners. He's looking after the front tires. Barcelona, a very front tire dependent circuit. You need all of that grip for the best turn in for these high speed corners. Let's see if there's anything Awad can do here. He was using overtake at this point on the last lap, but the 100-second cooldown means he's going to have to wait until potentially the straight down to the final hairpin to actually use it. But also, Palacio seems to be a bit less consistent through the corners. SRTE stablemates here starting to come together. Andres Espinosa and Ryan Reeves. Reeves right on the back, and he's on the push-to-pass cooldown, so he used it down the front straight to gain a little bit of extra time. Very deep into the hairpin. Just manages to hook up the apex. The hairpin's one of those turns where you don't necessarily need to hit the inside curb for the best run through the corner.
I don't think you want to hit the curb, period, when it comes to that, because here's the thing when it comes to Barcelona. You see those little yellow stripes? Some of those are sausage curbs, and these cars, if you hit them, they can potentially damage the under tray. It can damage the front wing especially as well. Or better yet, destabilize the car. Oh, and speaking of destabilize, the missed corner.
Yep, well, that's Eric Palacio, who was facing off against Victor Awad earlier, making that mistake. Looks like Awad was on push to pass, as I predicted, and Palacio, I think, got spooked. He was a little bit late into the braking zone. So that is going to be a nice freebie for Victor Awad. This is the onboard from Palacio. See the green light blinking, and then tries up the inside. Palacio responds by braking a bit deeper, but it's too deep. Locks it up, and into the gravel trap he goes.
He barely even made the 50 signboard. Let's put it that way. Let's put it simply. Awad sends it from the 100 board by the time he hit the brakes. That's not bad. Palacio just went even deeper than those lunging at him. Quite simply, that is absolutely a spook and a pressurized mistake. It's exactly what I talked about. Force a mistake, you gotta pass.
Oh, that's curious. That's Evander Jonesyfield, who's lost his rear wing somehow, and no grip on the rear end now. Sounds like he got hit by Kevin McPherson coming down to turn 1. McPherson trying to make the pass. Jonesyfield probably braked a bit early, and what was McPherson doing? He went back onto the racing line.
Yeah, he had the send. Just commit to it. Yeah, it's almost like Jonesyfield tried to let him go, and you have the response from McPherson saying, you know what, I'm just going to wait for a minute if he's not going to move fully out of my way. And they just crossed up the streams, and now Jonesyfield pays the price. Somehow, no damage on the 326 visually.
Yeah, looks like McPherson managed to get away with that one, but poor Evander Jonesyfield, if you lose the rear wing in an open wheel like this, it's usually game over. And you know, even repairs in the pits aren't going to fully fix that. So I would expect Jonesyfield to immediately make his way back into the lane and try and get it repaired, and maybe potentially come back out on track later in the race to pick up some points, but it's not looking good for the 24.
Yeah, disastrous time, let's put it that way, and I can tell you this, he just also picked up speeding penalties, so I'm pretty sure the 24 just wants to jack. Back to the live action though, you're saying. Victor Awad just continuing to try and recover, just seems to almost overexert himself. Even with the pressurized mistake, that doesn't make up for a -5 in a sea of blue and neon yellow cars working together, as well as white and neon.
Yeah, indeed. These SRTE cars are doing a good job of the old choo-choo train, aren't they? And it's all up to Awad here to try and take advantage. Awad would have been using his tyres a little more, as Ryan Reeves is now on overtake just up ahead. He's going to gain a little bit. He wants to try and get away from this pack. Blake Ziti on the cooldown, and so is Victor Awad, but look at the pace that Awad's got down the straight. Great slipstream, but he hits the metaphorical brick wall of air. He's going to go for the move up the inside of turn 1 and complete it nice and cleanly. Ziti saw him coming from a mile back and decided to just give it to him.
I think he used a bit of the button though, as we see the slow blink now off the top of the 44. Nicely done to be able to make the pass to the pass.
Indeed. Looking a bit further down the field, we see Alex Guyon chasing down Hugo Galaz here. Galaz started in 18th spot, and he's had a consistent race so far. He was one of the drivers that had to make his way through the drama on lap 1 that was caused by Guyon's spinning. And now Alex, I would expect, is potentially going to make short work of this pass, but we are a long way into the race right now. We're on lap 16 of a projected 34 laps, so the tyres will probably be starting to move past their best. They do last a while, but there'll be less and less available grip, and it'll be very easy to overheat them coming into the corners. Every time we see drivers going into those turns, I'm seeing someone lock up.
And that almost comes down to just how the braking profile is with the car, because it changes car to car, obviously, in the service. Some cars, you hit the brakes as much as 50%, it automatically locks up the tire. Others, you can go all the way to the floor and not lock it up. But obviously, this is towards those where even the lightest of too much pressure can completely lock up that front, bind it up, heat up the tire, and potentially burn up some of that tire pressure on those fronts, or rather tire wear on the front, as that's going to hurt long term if you keep doing that over and over.
Well, the lead is still on. Michael Diaz still holding on by about half a second at points over Boris Ovando. But Boris, I mean, his qualifying didn't go the best. But he's really gearing it up now that we're in the race session. Ovando, it seems, likes to be the one chasing. He likes to be the one who's putting that pressure on his teammate. As out onto the start of the 19th lap we go. Ovando on push to pass, and we see him gaining down the front straight. Is this going to be a move for the lead? Oh, he almost gets up to the inside of Diaz, but not quite. Michael can take the arc into the corner perfectly, and Ovando is going to have to wait and try again.
He had to try it. He tried to be able to get that to the mark, just didn't have the full space to do that, and that's the thing. Even though turn one's one of your prime opportunities, especially with the slipstream, especially when it comes to the push-to-pass system in this car, you can't really utilize that to be able to force the line. That up and under S-style line essentially also kind of makes it to where you need to clear by apex in the first corner. If you are still side by side, it's advantage to fender in most cases. Boris, though, seems to be winding up very well for Ascend. Maybe next time down the front stretch, he is already showing the nose, saying, I want to fight.
Yep, no team orders at PRE Blue. These two have been racing well all season. They haven't been getting in each other's way either in the midst of it. These guys have just been the best prepared squad of the entire series for my money. Oh, Ovando so close to getting into the gravel trap. Diaz on overtake, but Ovando has the slipstream. He's going to edge closer. This time Diaz is going to go defensive into turn one. Ovando gets the front wheels alongside Diaz's rears, but it's still not enough.
And that's what I said. Even though with how the run builds up for Ovando, I still, again, I'm in the thought you have to clear by the apex, or you can send it lunge. That's a dangerous lunge.
Oh, certainly is, but Repsol's one of those corners where if you're on the outside, you don't have too bad of a time of it. Diaz was able to hold on to the place, but you know what? All of this dicing is bringing Steve Baker right into the battle for the top three. Baker's holding on to the AM lead very nicely. He's got almost 5 seconds back to the next AM car of Jake Vasconcelos, so he can afford to battle a little bit with these guys, but wouldn't it be a disaster if these precision racing esports cars came together? They're holding on to a great result right now. Better not jeopardize it.
Are you trying to speak that into existence?
I tend to speak things into existence whether or not I want to.
I was about to say, though, obviously Boris knows the goal is not to crash your entire team. So that's why I think he's backing out the way he is when he doesn't have the full commit. This seems full commit right here. Boris is looking like he might be able to nearly clear.
Yeah, he's ahead into the braking zone. Diaz is going to get on the brakes a little. Oh, no, contact. There we go. It's happened between the teammates. Diaz making contact with Ovando there in turn one, and Steve Baker is now going to go for the overall lead. Diaz compromised. We have an AM car leading the race.
Well, how about that? I believe the script you were talking about on how the season's been going just got, well, torn asunder by that type of a move. It was a nasty, tight squeeze to try and get the job done, and it gets to the exact point I just made, Reese. You have to get the pass done before the start of turn 2 in the midst of the right-left. He tried to squeeze. You pinch, you pay.
Exactly. There's the onboard here, and yeah, there was the pinch there from Ovando. I mean, I understand why. You know, he wanted to get the best line through turn 1 so he didn't run off track at turn 2, but he just turned in a bit too tight. Diaz was still there. There was still overlap. So, yeah, like you said, paying the price. And, I mean, I don't know. I'm unsure of really how to call that, because Ovando had made the move. He was ahead on the way into the corner, but he was on the outside. And Diaz has no choice but to let Baker through. Now, the two Precision Racing Esports blue cars will have to sort themselves out for another go at it. Doesn't look like they've gained much in the way of damage, probably just flummoxed a little, as Palacio, of all people, gets the fastest lap of the race there, down in 12th position.
I think they are fine in terms of that, looking at both their cars, no physical damage, and visual, I should really say. It's just right now getting your rhythm back. Just allowing to see what Baker's going to really do. As you're even looking at some of the interval, it's looking fine. It's just that Diaz and Ovando, I think with all of that, have just broken their pattern and rhythm. As look at this send here from Reese. Victor Alad wanting to go. He's starting to get a little bit of the elbows out.
Yep, Awad's now between the SRTE blue cars. Made the pass on Blake Ziti, and now looking at Ryan Reeves as well. Very entertaining battle here in the back half of the top 10. We got Jeff Groff and Eric Palacio there as well. And remember, I just said Palacio took the fastest lap of the race. He's right at the rear of this train. So maybe look for him to be making moves soon.
Yeah, well, just take a look at this set.
Oh my lord! Yeah, that's big. That was a psych out maneuver, I think. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to make the corner. Fortunately, Ziti saw him coming and went wide, and that's how Awad ultimately made the move. And looks like Ziti was sufficiently spooked that he's continued to lose time. See how far behind Awad he is now, facing off against Jeff Groff.
You know what's closed up, though, as all the tire smoke from Ovando in the corner. Michael Diaz closed up the gap by 0.6 this lap. He seems to have found that rhythm back. It's almost like with this car, what we've seen in qualifying. I touched upon this for a couple drivers. It takes at least 2 to 3 laps to get the speed and flow and your rhythm in with the tire, in with the car. And we're seeing exactly that now with Diaz back in the flow and back in the rhythm to get back to Baker.
Yeah, indeed, but the Diaz and Ovando still, I think, a bit too close together to really have a proper run at it. The thing is, if they want the top 2 positions, they can't afford to get in each other's way like they did at turn 1 a couple of laps ago. Ovando on the overtake button, and now I think there is sufficient overspeed for Boris Ovando that he'll be able to get that move done cleanly, and he does. Diaz will fall back into line. He's on the cooldown right now.
Second he got side by side, we heard Diaz went straight to the cooldown. So quite simply, I think that was, okay, you have it, you've proven you want it, take it.
Diaz, meanwhile, looks like the cooldown period is over. Diaz didn't have push to pass at all down the front straight. Remember, the cooldown period is 100 seconds, so he wasn't using it pretty much the whole of that last lap. So now he's trying to keep up with Boris Ovando. But again, not making much headway onto Baker, who's driving very consistently up the front right now.
Yeah, you were talking about, is this the night Steve Baker puts it together? I think you just got your answer with the way it's looking. No matter what happens here, you can at least say Baker has been the best when it comes to the AM class tonight, through and through in race pace. Top 3, has kept well and away in front of Vasconcelos and company. He's just been that quick tonight. And now, if he gets an overall win, it could flip it.
Yeah, certainly. Pablo Valenzuela Uribe, meanwhile, the red-nosed car here. Car poking its nose out is Alex Guillon, who's still trying to find his way up through the field. Hasn't been able to make much headway from down there in 16th place. He's got Kevin McPherson with him as well, who, remember, had to take a penalty for a jump start, as looks like Awad has gotten around Ryan Reeves and up into 8th place, used the overtake button to get that done down the front straight, and now he can start to make a bit of pace up on Espinoza and Williams, who are still line astern for 6th and 7th.
And we're coming up to crunch time here, because looking at things right now, about 12, 13 minutes to work with. That's not great. Both of them nearly drove each other off the racetrack. And that's almost a concern right there when it comes to aero wash. If someone makes a mistake, one thing that seems to happen on iRacing, whether in general, is you get doubly tight as the car behind. It's interesting when you see a train of 5 cars do it, let alone 1.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't imagine the amount of aero push you'd be dealing with at the end of a very long train. Well, lap 24 is complete up at the front of the field. Overtake button being used for Steve Baker. He's trying to keep some space between himself and his PRE stablemates. Ovando and Diaz still together. Diaz has not allowed Ovando to get away. Now we just need to make sure that they keep the pace up. Ovando didn't have the best of exits out of the first couple of turns there. Diaz almost had a look at him coming into turn 3, but once again, has to stay behind.
At this point, I think it's competition, even though they're teammates here. The discussion has to be, if we really want a chance for the overall win tonight, we have to wait. Just taking a look at the lap times, they already are both quicker. Diaz, in fact, set a 1:21.2, one of the quicker race times today, albeit with a bunch of off tracks, so it's not the purple lap of the day, but still, they've got the pace. You have to remain patient. If you force it side by side, you lose all the momentum built up, and you give Baker a chance to run again.
Yeah, it's tough if you're in a battle and trying to chase down the lead. You know, Ovando and Diaz, they race each other hard but fair, aside from the contact that we saw down at turn 1. The challenge is to work together, get up to Steve Baker, and grab those points, as that's a look there from Diaz. It looks like he's not too interested in working together.
Somebody should probably tell them if they do that again, they might allow Baker to take the win here in the upset. Just a quite simple thought here, but I think Michael's not close enough to do it yet. I think, again, though, when you go back to the initial pass that allowed Ovando through, that's almost a signal where if you're in a teammate conversation, Reese, I've had this conversation too with drivers on the platform or as teammates. If you think you're faster, let me go. If you aren't faster, I'll give it back. Some people don't like to give it back. Some do. But Ovando needs to prove pretty soon, if he's really got the pace, he needs to go.
Indeed he does, but he needs to be careful about it, and Diaz needs to be careful about it as well. J.R. Williams is still right there in 3rd in the championship. He's only about 15 points or so behind from memory. Could be wrong on that, but the gap is pretty close. If either of these guys crash, then J.R. Williams will be the upset potentially for the Pro Drivers title. Ovando not on the overtake button, but Diaz and Baker are. And down into turn 1 for the 27th time in this race. Seems like the gap is continuing to close. 1/10 taken out there as big push to pass moment there for Victor Awad. He's made his way past Andres Espinoza and into 7th place. There's been some huge gains for Awad over the last couple of laps.
Yeah, and hearing that he's on the red, that means he's down to the final 20 seconds or so here. He is pushing that hard just to recover all the spots from the poor start and for the track loss in the early going. But up front again. You mentioned how they're closing every lap. Well, it's first of all because they are, but second, it's because the more closer they get, the more time that's built up, the more momentum. I straight up feel that this is going to come down the rate it's going to a battle within the final 5 laps or so. Coming up here for the full send. The time is being shown. The table is being set for lap 30.
Oh, that's a big problem down in the field. Dave Peterson has crashed on, looks like turn 3. Alex Guyon as well is out. The right rear of the car is destroyed. No rear wing. There's been a big incident there. We'll have to keep our eyes on the battle for the lead, though, because the overtake button is on for Boris Ovando, trying to follow in the slipstream of Steve Baker, who goes defensive into turn 1, and that's a massive dive around the outside for Ovando. Baker loses the lead. He could lose second as well if Diaz gets it together.
That's a lot earlier than lap 30, I'll admit that. But I still think there's still the chance we see Diaz do the same. With Ovando now with the clean air, it's going to be tricky to get the recoil down, and Baker is almost re-exerting too much power. Here comes Diaz.
Oh yeah, round the outside of the hairpin, but it's understeer for Steve Baker. Almost pushes Diaz too wide there. You don't want to go side by side into this corner. Diaz just trying to stay as close as he can. And round the outside again. Oh no, he's going to have to give it up here, or is he? Wow, that's a great sweep by Michael Diaz to take second place back from Steve Baker. Well, Steve had his moment in the sun. He has led the race for quite a few laps, but still on the podium. He should be very happy with how he's gone. We'll go to a quick replay here of Alex Guyon. He was just too deep there coming into the turn and hitting Dave Peterson around.
He tried to get on the brakes too and let him save it, just couldn't get it saved. When you're stuck like that, when you make that little contact with this car, it's just about over the second you start to jackknife a little bit to the right like that. Looking a lot, though. He does not want to lose any more spots here. He has gone full serpentine mode.
Yeah, Victor Awad's pace is massive right now. He's gotten past J.R. Williams for 6th spot. And that is a fantastic recovery there for Awad. He's almost back up to the position he started in. Next car up the road is David Sirah, who's embroiled in the battle for 4th with Jake Vasconcelos. But there's a bit of space between them. I think Awad, well, now that he's in the final 20 seconds worth of overtake, he's going to have to be careful about where he uses that.
Especially now with us running out of time here. It's worth noting, right now we're coming up to 5 minutes to go on the clock itself in session. 45 minutes, remember the time. 34 laps was the estimate coming in. Oh, would this be one of the newest cars to the platform? Things can change. The estimate time, 5 laps to go. We're looking at 2 less laps possibly, if not 1, with the current pace of the field.
Yeah, looks like it. Won't make the full projected race distance. You know, it's been interesting to see that. At most of the rounds so far, we've been able to finish all the laps, but there have been a couple of occasions where we've been at the very least borderline, and at Monza, the race finished a lap earlier than we expected because of certain things to do with the time going down around the time of the last lap. There goes our leaders past the now lapped car of Neil Alexander, who, remember, made a stop for damage earlier on in the race. He'll be happy, though, with 19th. He's up 2 from where he started. It's a steadily growing retirements list. We've lost 6 cars from this race.
And I think we're going to potentially get towards the close march of that now with the pressure building up and a lot of people running out of that boost. But Ovando, though, has to go full defense. Michael Diaz just seems laser focused in the midst of the 3rd sector. Protect your... Oh, no!
Ovando going deep, lock up, Diaz alongside. Can he get it done round the outside of this never-ending corner? Tries to get on the power, straighter exit round the outside. Oh my God, for the lead through the final couple of corners. Super fast turns these. You don't want to go side by side. Ovando getting into the gravel trap. Diaz is going to go for it.
Flashing on the button for the backside. Here comes Diaz, well clear. Boris Ovando just absolutely cooked his advantage for a buffer for at least another half lap. Those mistakes, all Sector 3, just absolutely killed his momentum.
Yeah, massive. And now Michael Diaz has a 0.6 of a second gap. That's huge. And
Oh, he's got a black.
Oh no! What? Must have gotten too many off tracks potentially. Did Boris Ovando? Remember, it's a drive-through. If you exceed the incident limit. Oh yes, and Ovando took a couple of off tracks earlier. Remember when he made the move, tried to make the move on Diaz around the outside earlier? He went straight off the track. That would have been one of many off tracks he's taken here. So that's something that we actually haven't talked about yet. The incident limit and how easy it is to get off tracks around here. Ovando is a victim of it.
And now it gets very interesting, Reese, because depending on where he got the trigger from the sim, I'm pretty certain it's coming out of the final corner last time by with the sand kick up. He's either going to have to serve it on the white flag lap at the very latest, or is going to be borderline to avoid a DQ. It looks like he already knows he has to serve it, because if he tries to go, it's a lap too long to try and risk a time penalty instead.
Yeah, oh, that's such a shame for Boris Ovando. One of the fastest drivers here tonight, second in the championship. This is going to be a big loss of points for Boris. He'll drive through the lane and re-emerge outside the top 10. Looks to me like he's come back out in 12th, so he'll still get points, but probably won't be enough to hold on to that second place spot.
It's unfortunate, but remember, they had the contact, and that's what is the major trigger. But J.R. Williams in all of this is still in a solid position, just not in the position I think he was hoping for to try and at least equalize for the title fight. He's been bundled up and staying here this entire race with his teammates, and that's tricky to break that bubble today, unfortunately.
Yeah, indeed. Well, a minute and 20 seconds on the clock as we speak, and guess what? A minute 20 seconds is about a very fast lap here at Barcelona, so this should be the white flag for Michael Diaz. Steve Baker will still hold on to second, and Jake Vasconcelos, thanks to Boris Ovando's error, has been elevated onto the podium. I can't remember if we've had two AM cars on the podium before in this series, but man, certainly great driving from Baker and Vasconcelos, but I won't call it too early. I don't want to curse him.
Yeah, Diaz has been, for the most part, outside of the craziness for the race lead earlier on, been lights out pace, been lights out consistency. He just seems very comfortable. Now, there is the one thing. He has to make sure no lap cars fall out from in front of him, because he does have Sean Duhamel next up in front of him a little bit. It's clean sailing from here to be able to take the overall season lead in victories.
Yeah, for sure. Michael Diaz, in fact, already has the most wins of anyone at 2. Same for Ovando as well. Williams with 1 win. So, yeah, you're right in the end. Sorry, morning brain. But in any case, time hits 0, and this will be the conclusion of the race. And it looks like Diaz won't catch up to Sean Duhamel. He'll be plain sailing to victory here at the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya. Your victor is Michael Diaz. Steve Baker, how about him? Taking the AM class victory with a 2nd overall finish, and Vasconcelos will hold off David Sirrar for 3rd spot. Absolutely brilliant podium.
Strong one, but how about that for the AM drivers in general here, Reese? We were talking about this where it was tricky for a lot of those AM drivers to get points up towards the top. Well, they just very much upped the ante today.
That they did. Last couple of cars to come across the line in the top 15. We've got 5 more cars making their way to the end. This is Hugo Galaz making his way to the line, all on his lonesome. Christian Jasper was 2nd in the AM Championship coming into this round, but I think he'll lose quite a bit of ground with that result. But Kevin McPherson, I think the biggest heartbreak of them all, was leading the AM standings coming into this round, and unfortunately jumping the start taking a penalty. That means that Vasconcelos is likely going to take the AM Championship lead here, as Duhamel will finally come to the last few corners. The 6:17, the last finisher on the lead lap here. And that means that we can go through our results here from round 6 of PRL Super Formula for 2024 Season 2. Michael Diaz taking the win by 1.8 seconds from Baker and Vasconcelos, your AM top 2. Siraj will finish 2nd in Pro, 4th overall. Awad with a great recovery back up to the position he started in 5th. JR Williams will hold on to 6th spot with Espinoza, Reeves, Ziti and Palacio rounding out the top 10. Palacio briefly held the fastest lap for a time. Jeff Groff will finish ahead of Boris Ovando, who had to take an incident points penalty late on in the race. Could have been a podium for him, and it's going to be hard for him to hold on to his position 2nd in the championship from here. Valenzuela will finish 13th and 14th. Galaz, Jasper, McPherson and Duhamel are your last finishers on the lead lap. Neil Alexander, the only other finisher of the race, 1 lap down. Then we get into retirement territory. Dave Peterson and Alex Guyon coming together at turn 4. Evander Jonesyfield was out early thanks to the contact that Kevin McPherson put on him. Jean-Marc Cormier and Drew DeWeese came together, and Ethan Tavitas would have lost his rear wing earlier on thanks to more massive contact. So that concludes the racing portion of the night. We're waiting for drivers to come in for interviews, but man, what a race it was. Looks like we have drivers in here now, and I think we can go in reverse podium order, because Vasconcelos, who finished 3rd overall, is the first one in. Welcome, Jake, and congratulations on an overall 3rd.
Yeah, that was great. Was not expecting that. Oh man, what a race.
Yeah, you started in 7th spot, and it seems like incident points and comings together at high speed were the defining factors of the night so far. Any big stressful moments that you remember?
I mean, the main thing was keeping the incident count down. I thought that was going to be my my downfall, but I only had a few. Besides a couple moments, being kept under pressure, it was a great race for me. I'm really surprised in myself.
Well, surprised and satisfied you should be, because, AM P2, overall P3, and especially considering the issues that your teammate Kevin McPherson, as well as Christian Jasper, suffered today, you're likely going to move into the AM Class Championship lead out of this round, so big ups for you.
Yeah, that's a good move up to the top there. It's too bad for Kevin. He was running great tonight, but hopefully he'll recover for next week.
Indeed. We'll see how it goes in the final few rounds of the season. Thanks very much for joining us, Jake Vasconcelos. Hopefully we get a chance to talk to you next round.
Yeah, I hope so. Thanks. Good night.
Vasconcelos, 2nd place in AM. Meanwhile, Justin, 1st place in AM. A fantastic result for Steve Baker.
Steve coming, hi indeed. Steve coming into tonight. It was talked about by Reese Gardner that you've shown speed. It was just about putting together. Tonight, you put in speed, but also put it together. How does it feel to be the top driver for AM tonight?
Yeah, it was a great race. I was hoping to bounce back from last week. Just had a lapse in concentration and spun it, and lost a pretty decent race last week, so I wanted to come back this week and try and have a good result.
What's been so difficult in terms of keeping things fully dialed in terms of making sure you limit the mistakes, but also keep the speed that you've shown the flashes of prior to tonight at least into the full power band?
Yeah, just honestly learning a lot from my teammates Mike and Boris, trying to get a hold of the car, and I think I started the 2nd race of this season with this car, and just feeling a little bit more comfortable with it each week.
So with that being said, it's coming down to the home stretch after this week. Next up we go just across the border to the next state over, or next nation over in Portugal. Your thoughts on Portimao?
Yeah, should be a fun one. I've not run that track, so a lot of learning to do, but looking forward to it, and hopefully we'll have another good run next week.
Well, Steve, once again, congratulations on the run here tonight. It's been an interesting time, and you get the AM win and nearly the overall.
Thank you, guys.
Steve Baker, P2 tonight, Reese.
Indeed, and we'll talk as well to David Syrah, who finished in 4th place overall after starting in 9th. That was a very interesting race for you, David. It looked like you were involved in tons of battles there, having to fight your way up and battle with the PRE crew.
Yeah, it was a tough race. I was a bit disappointed with my qualification run. Starting back in 9th, I was not very happy about this. And but I had a good first lap, and I gained a few spots. And then I tried to keep the pressure on Jake and try to manage my tires to have a bit of tire left at the end of the race. Yeah, it was an interesting race. I'm very happy, but it was a tough one.
Yeah, you were battling with SRTE, not PRE. Sorry for that mix-up on my end. But yeah, a P4 coming out of this round. And if I'm taking a look at the Pro Drivers' Championship here, currently you were 5th coming into this round. Evidently, that might be enough to elevate you above Pablo Valenzuela Uribe for 4th in the championship. So end of the season is looking good.
Yeah, it's looking good, and I'm working with Alex Guyon to work on the setup and try to improve this car. We don't know it yet quite enough to be very comfortable with the car, but we are getting there slowly, race after race. We're working hard.
Absolutely, you are. Well, congratulations once again on your 4th, and hopefully we get a chance to chat to you Lavoie Motorsport boys again. David, thanks for joining us.
Sure, thanks to you, and thanks to Lavoie Motorsport and Ancestral Urbain for supporting us.
David Syrah there, 4th place on the road here at Barcelona, and it looks like, Justin, there might be a bit of a debrief going on between Michael Diaz and Boris Ovando. Neither of them have joined us for an interview, so we might have to call it there. What a race that was. Definitely one of the more dramatic in PRL Super Formula.
Yeah, it definitely felt dramatic from the onset, especially with the speed boost, but also better yet, just some of the aggressiveness needed. It is a track we've already talked about many times that's traditionally known for being hard to pass. It lived up to that billing tonight where you had to be brave. You had to be able to make it stick. A lot of people did not make it stick even a little, but your best of the best made it stick to get to the podium.
They absolutely did, and they'll get another chance to do it next week at the Algarve International Circuit in Portimao. Mark that date in your calendar, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time on the 8th of May. We race in Portugal for the 3rd last round of PRL Super Formula. Plenty of overtaking opportunities around this place, but man, it follows the terrain hard. Look at that. You can even see it from these B-roll shots. It's going to be a huge challenge for the drivers with plenty of fast, blind corners. It's going to be a great race. We hope that you can join us for it. Thanks for watching PRL Super Formula here on RaceSpotTV. Big thanks to the Precision Racing League for putting this on in the first place, and to all the relevant sponsors. I'm Reese Gardner, Justin Prince with me in the comms box with Dustin Ollis behind the scenes here on RaceSpotTV. Thanks for watching once again. We'll see you next time.